So with that, Himalayan, I'll pass it off to you.
Lasso, Tuchana, Tashtele. So my name is Kiki, and I'm the creator of the social media pages called Himalayan Dumplings on both Facebook as well as Instagram. And I also do pop-ups by a similar name called Himalayan Dumplings and More during the summer season each year to kind of promote a culture in the local community. So before I start, I do want to thank Online Tibetan Education and especially its organizers that are working behind the scene for not only having me, but also providing such a much needed platform like this to teach Tibetans like us about our language, our culture, and our religion. So thank you so much. Um, as for me, I created my social media pages, Himalayan Dumplings, on Instagram and Facebook, I think roughly about 3 years ago. But really, my journey started, as far as my journey to promote a Tibetan culture, started when I became a mother, some 10 years ago. Um, so some of you may know my kids are mixed. My kids are half Tibetan and half Cambodian. So as I was trying to figure out motherhood and how to try and give influence my kids to have a greater appreciation for the Tibetan culture, I found myself kind of naturally gravitating towards exploring Tibetan food and Tibetan cuisine as one of the ways to try and bring about greater appreciation of a culture amongst my two daughters, my mixed kids. So now, mind you, back then when I became a mom, not only did I not cook, I was not interested in cooking either. So it was a huge learning experience for me, exploring Tibetan cuisine and such. But it wasn't until I attended a night market, an international night market. So, the city where I live in, they launched an international night market some 5 years ago or something like that, right? And the whole milieu of this market was to promote the underrepresented communities in the city where I live in. So I attended this market at its launch. Right? They had over 10,000 people. So tons of people attending this market. And I saw on my Cambodian husband's face and his family's, friends and faces, there was so much pride when they saw their culture being represented by, little Cambodian food booth, which is when it struck me and I realized just how powerful of a medium and just how universally appealing food can be, right? To kind of encourage cultural pride, cultural preservation, and cultural celebration. And that day when I went home, I was like, okay, I got to do something. There is no Tibetan representation. I got to do something, but I have no culinary professional background at all. And I was kind of in the early infancy stages of learning how to cook to begin with, right? So anyway, I went ahead and applied to this market. I was absolutely sure I would get rejected, right? I didn't even tell anybody. I didn't even tell my husband that I applied. But luckily, I got accepted. I wrote this long essay on why Tibetan cuisine and culture should be represented in the following Kasa international night market in our city, right? So not only did I get accepted, but the very cool thing, and at that time I felt so proud as a Tibetan, right? Out of my little kur, I'm selling Tibetan food, right? And we had the longest lines with lines wrapped around the block. And at that time I realized it was conversation after conversation. It wasn't just about selling food and introducing food to people, right? To try Tibetan food, but there were so many questions. Oh, what are those colorful flags that are hanging on your tent? Are you a Tibetan? If you're a Tibetan, why are you not from Tibet, but you're from Nepal or India, and so on and so forth. So, at that time, it really reinforced to me that, food was such a universally appealing way for me to have, very naturally, non-threatening way, countless of conversations about not only our culture, but even about our freedom movement. So subsequently, Roa, because we had such great success, I was one of the 2 food vendors that got invited back by the city year after year. And this international market really took off. They have like 15,000 plus people attend one night session. So it was really popular, but I was one of the 2 people that were invited back year after year. And not only, it wasn't so much also about the success or the popularity of Tibetan food amongst the community, but I was told that the other reason why I was invited back year after year was also because of the storytelling efforts that I put when I was promoting a culture, you know, whether it's through Facebook or social media, or even in my menu. I don't just say sha momo, $8 or whatever, you know. I make a point to say what is the origin of momo, you know, and so on and so forth. So because this was never about making money in the first place, it was about physically being in the presence of my local community and being able to make them aware of a culture through something so universally appealing like food. So as for Facebook and Instagram, it was such a natural transition for me to go from, you know, trying to motivate and encourage my kids, you know, on an individual scale for them to have greater appreciation for our culture, then to start doing pop-ups in my local community events to try and take it to a local level, and then to try and, you know, have much greater reach through using raw social media, such a powerful tool to reach people that you would otherwise never reach physically, right? So um, some of you may know, Karsa, I am not only a mom, but during this COVID-19 outbreak, you know, I'm also homeschooling my kids, my two kids, while I am, Karsa, remotely working from home. I'm also doing school. So there's a lot going on. My day-to-day life is pretty chaotic, to say the least, right? But this year, I really wanted to launch a YouTube channel because I realized that visual storytelling is so powerful as a way to get across one's message. Right? Now, on an individual level, I am technically challenged. Video editing chidoni nga gobet korgonani. You know, I don't know anything. I'm looking at YouTube. My head is hurting after I finish kids' schoolwork, my homework, getting late at night. I'm watching all this YouTube on how to edit and so on and so forth. But I was like, I must do this because not only is YouTube like the second largest search engine, you know, video is such a powerful way of, you know, promoting our cuisine. So my aspiration, my motivation, you know, for all the work that is involved, even though it's so like migraine inducing work to do all this video editing, was that I want to tell a story, you know, I want to tell a story of our culture, our people, our struggles, and our perseverance through something so beautiful, a common language like food. So that's really what keeps me going, especially when I get private messages on Facebook or Instagram or shares or mention, and people are saying, Acha, you know, after you started sharing this and I started seeing how people are responding, I am starting to cook Tibetan food more, you know, things like that, you know, or someone just commented on YouTube today that was a non-Tibetan. I didn't know about how bad the Tibetan situation was politically until I saw your Momo video. Who would have thought, you know, politics and Momo, you know, but really, even through Momo, even something like a dish that we kind of take for granted, you know, I have the opportunity to introduce that food and explain why Momo is the way it is and how it originated and why someone like me is living in Ari or lived in India or Nepal and not in Tibet, you know. So I'm always looking for opportunities, Karsa, to promote our culture and to celebrate it and hopefully be able to reach a much wider audience now through YouTube as well. So if anyone has any questions, whether it's about setting up pop-ups in your own local community because you have no representation in your community, or whether it's about YouTube but just in general, if you have any questions, I'm always happy to help in any way I can.